Hey guys, weekend energy update. Let's get into it. This could be kind of an unusual weekend. We have Neptunian squares going on. Be careful what you trust and what you're buying into this weekend. I will say that. It's interesting because we're actually coming out of a week right now, which was very much defined by Saturnian squares. Could have been a long, hard week. And now we're moving into this energy characterized by the harsh aspect to Neptune this weekend. It's a real good weekend to just sort of rest, relax, get some extra sleep if you can, read a good book, kick your feet up. Don't kind of anything real like physically active is probably going to be a bit of a struggle this weekend. And also be real careful what you're buying into. People are going to have a hard time getting their story straight, I do think, as we go through the weekend. Now, that being said, it is interesting because we start the weekend on Friday actually with the Sun and Mercury coming into exact alignment in the sky. Now, when this period of time occurs, it's actually a 10-minute period of time that we have going on Friday, which we'll talk about in the report. It's called the CAZIMI, and we're said to be able to gain some type of important insight or like a light bulb moment, like figuring something out that we've been lacking somehow. The sign of Gemini, it may really help us to make a choice or a decision about something. But when we think about this in the context of all of these Neptunian squares, I do think that there could be some real struggles coming up this weekend between like fact and fantasy, truth and illusion, what we thought was going on and what was happening versus perhaps what really has been going on and what has been happening, destroying some illusions and perhaps some harsh or ugly truths that really open our eyes to something or just bring us to a point where we're ready to let something go somehow. So that being said, you guys, we do have a lot to talk about in the context of how astrology is playing out for us this weekend. Let's get into our report of the day. Let's look at everything we got going on and what perhaps it might mean for us as we head towards next week. Welcome back to my channel, you guys. Today is Friday, June 14th, 2024. My name is Aubrey. This is your astrological outlook of the weekend where we are narrating the shift of the ages. In this video, we're going to talk about all we have going on energetically from June 14th to June 16th this week and how it might be coloring our experience as we head into the energy of next week. Now, as I said, next week, we are going to experience some energetic shifts as we're going to have Mercury and Venus on Monday actually both leave the sign of Gemini and enter the sign of Cancer together. So that should bring a bit of a palpable energetic shift. But for now, like this weekend, it is kind of like activating maybe some things that have been working their way to their release point for a while. There's some strong energy that is indicating a transition point, being ready to let go of something, things sort of like drifting away, drifting apart, disassociating, and also there is a very strong energetic imprint coming through that is calling for a reflection point. Maybe there's something important that we need to reflect on, or maybe there are some important things that are being reflected back to us somehow. But the vibration of this concept of reflection is being expressed like over and over and over and over again via the chart and the degrees and, you know, everything that's kind of energetically speaking to me in the context of what we've got going on really all weekend long. Okay, so a moment to reflect is, I feel, kind of like the overall general nature of what we've got going on this weekend, and it could be weird, like what we're finding out, like the information that's coming to us. It could be bringing up a lot of questions, it could be bringing up a lot of doubts, it could honestly be bringing up a lot of fears. Like, I do want to say we're in very strong black moon energy too. I also should have mentioned that in my intro. The black moon triggers our shadow side issues, okay? Our fears, our insecurities, our doubts. In the sign of Virgo, this will have a lot to do with the fear of failure and inadequacy, not being good enough, not being able to bring things to their conclusion, really questioning and doubting our capabilities and our potential and all of that. So those could be some things that, you know, we're kind of struggling with as well in the context of whatever information is coming to us. But like, I do kind of have to say, like, the energy coming through to me this weekend is sort of giving like Matrix vibes, like taking the red pill type of energy and then having to face the reality that maybe we've been neglecting to see or avoiding, or that we just had been unaware of happening around us somehow, in like the good, the bad, and the ugly versions of it. Okay. And I say that because, number one, we have these squares going on between Gemini and Pisces, okay? And they are with the rulers of the sign. Like, we're talking about Mercury in the sign of Gemini, ruling Gemini, squaring Neptune in the sign of Pisces, ruling Pisces. And not only that, this is a 29-degree square. So it's at the very, very last degree of the sign, and Neptune is at the very last degree of the zodiac, actually preparing to go retrograde before finishing his transit of the sign of Pisces and entering Aries as well. That will be like a huge vibrational shift coming up here over the next year or so as well. However, right now, this is talking to me about being at a transition point, right? We're talking about the 29th degree of these mutable signs, and the sign of Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, that's like the end of the end of the end. And it's information in the context of Gemini, and it's beliefs and fantasies and ideals and illusions when we're talking about the sign of Pisces. The square, this is things coming to a head. This is tension that, you know, requires some type of breakthrough in order to evolve and to come to find its balance. Okay, so there could be some real serious questions that are coming up in the context of what we thought was true, what we believed, what we like, our vision of something, or even like the fantasy or the ideal, or, you know, the hypnosis or the illusion, and like a set of information or facts or some type of clarity or some conversation or some missing piece of information that's coming through that is sort of like blowing the lid off of it and totally like pulling the wool off of our eyes or something, destroying the illusion. But at the same time, having us really question, you know, if we made the right choice or decision maybe, or, you know, bringing up even more questions about like what we're going to do going forward, and perhaps some of these fears being triggered through the process. It does remind me of sort of like this taking the red pill energy and waking up, like when Neo comes out of the Matrix, right? Wakes up from the Matrix and he realizes the true, you know, nightmare, horrifying truth of his reality. However, he also realizes the value of the freedom and the truth that he has woken up to, in terms of especially the opportunity perhaps to change it, and how that freedom is worth so much more than the comfort of the slumber that he'd been existing within before. So I feel like that might be kind of like what people are collectively dealing with as this energy unfolds, taking the red pill, and the outcome may be horrifying but also inspiring, and kind of like having to process all of that. There could be a lot of like escapism tendencies going on this weekend as well. And generally, you know, it just could be kind of like a surreal or hard to believe like experience that could be playing out. So all of that. Now, on the other hand, people could just be caught in some type of fantasy land or delusion that does result in some type of discouragement or disappointment. Whenever we're dealing with squares to Neptune, especially with these personal planets, Venus, Mercury, the sun, a lot of times it can have a tendency of like making us feel more significantly like where we've fallen short of like our own ideals or expectations for ourselves, or for our love life, or our romance, or our relationships, or connections with others, with it being Venus there as well. Like, it has a tendency of, you know, really highlighting both the ideal version and the real version, and the contrast, okay, between where we're at and where we would like to be. And as a result of that, it can bring up definite like it can really trigger a sense of disappointment, low vibe energy, idealism, and the vision of what could be is likely to be on people's minds and hearts with Mercury and Venus moving into the square with Neptune this weekend. However, this energy, as I've been saying, is more about breakdown, is more about transition than it is about manifesting, okay, some type of fantasy or vision or dream into reality. This is not like, there are times when that is definitely the vibe. This is not one of those times. Now, I do think Friday is the energetic highlight of the weekend. This is the day when we have the CAZIMI, the exact alignment between Mercury and the Sun, which is very interesting. As I noted in the beginning, this CAZIMI to me is bringing up like major indications of some type of reflection point that we are arriving at. Listen to just what's going on, okay, with the timing and the degree placement of this CAZIMI. It's happening, they're coming into alignment at exactly 24 degrees in 5 minutes of the sign of Gemini, which of course is about reflection and polarity, the twins. And it's happening at exactly 12:21 Eastern time. 12 and 21, that's literally a mirror image. And 24, that's also 12 split into 2. So I find that to be quite indicative. And listen to this, what's going on with the polarity to the Sun? That would be the moon. The moon is also in an exact opposition, an exact reflection with Neptune in Pisces from the sign of Virgo. And not only that, the moon is also going to be in an exact conjunction to the black moon in the sign of Virgo. And the black moon also has a lot to do with oppositions and polarities. It's actually activated through oppositions and, of course, conjunctions as well. So we have major energy that is talking about being at a reflection point or something being reflected back to us, or the need to reflect on something that is being presented to us somehow. Of course, as I have mentioned, the Sun and Mercury coming into exact alignment, especially in the sign of Gemini, is likely to bring some missing piece of important information somehow that is significant, especially in the sign of Gemini, in the context perhaps of some type of choice or decision that we have been conflicted about maybe, or that we've been trying to make, okay? And I also will say there's a highly intuitive component to the Mercury CAZIMI as well. I mean, when we're talking about Mercury CAZIMI, like, this is the mind, this is the light bulb moment happening within the mind. But when the moon is opposite Neptune, this is a very emotionally sensitive energy. This can be a very intuitive, like very emotionally psychic energy, and we do have a greater ability to sort of like connect with our higher selves and channel information that way on an emotional level. We've got the moon Neptune opposition as well, very visionary and dreamer energy coming through, although we've got the squares to Neptune that are happening simultaneously, okay, from the sign of Gemini, which the Sun and Gemini, or I mean the Sun and Mercury coming together, this is happening, as I said, at 24 Gemini. Right now we have Neptune at 29 Pisces. So we do have a 5-degree orb separation, but it's, you know, this is still a very real square that we are dealing with. And so although we may be like intuitively picking up on something, or even like we may have a greater ability to kind of like analyze or contact maybe the contents of our unconscious mind to a greater extent, maybe figure out or reflect more deeply upon some of our own feelings or our own shadow side issues or our own insecurities and stuff like that. Because remember, we also have a very strong black moon energy, and I'm going to talk about that as we get through the report as well. There is just inherent conflict that could be going on between feelings, beliefs, and thoughts. We've got a T-square essentially set up between the moon in Virgo, Mercury, Venus, and the Sun in Gemini, and Neptune in Pisces. So this could be like internal conflict going on that is driving us a little bit mad, making us a little bit emotional, or just draining our energy to an extent throughout the course of the weekend. Figuring things out in the CAZIMI energy that trigger perhaps some of these deep subconscious fears or shadow side issues that we've been dealing with. This could be how this is coming out. And we're talking about the sign of Pisces and Neptune. I've been talking about this actually for the past couple weeks. Fear is the illusion right now, and people are going to be imagining the worst, okay? Imagining and worrying about like the worst possible outcomes and like their biggest fears and stuff like that. I do think as we move through this energy, because we're talking about a moon, black moon conjunction opposite Neptune. That is this emotional alignment with what we're worried about and, you know, what we fear or the unknown things that make us feel like insecure and anxious and stuff like that. Opposite Neptune, the illusion, the distortion, the lack of clarity, and the breakdown of things as well. Also, though, there is this conflict between our feelings, our beliefs, and our thoughts, while we have this relative T-square playing out between the moon in Virgo, Mercury, Venus, and the sun in Gemini, and Neptune in the sign of Pisces, okay? We could also, I will say, you know, the light bulb moment, the information coming through, the vital knowing that we arrive at somehow represented through the CAZIMI energy. With the black moon situation going on, it could honestly, as I was mentioning earlier, this is why, okay, I feel like it's giving the Matrix vibes so much. It's because the black moon is there. This is like waking up from the dream, but like almost feeling like the reality is kind of like a nightmare, or our kind of like deep unconscious fears and anxieties and worries and doubts being triggered through whatever we're learning, information that we're gaining, what we're knowing. But the thing is, like, and you know, it's information that we need to know so that we can solve the problem, right? So that we can prevent like the whatever scenario maybe that we don't like or that makes us uncomfortable from like perpetuating and growing and becoming the reality. Because right now it actually isn't the reality. Right now it's actually the illusion, because we're talking about the opposition to Neptune. Neptune doesn't have staying power. Things don't manifest. They don't turn real. Like nothing comes to pass of things that are involved with Neptune in harsh aspect in their origins, okay? So if we've got a scenario playing out right now that is like showing us or reflecting back to us or projecting back to us, you know, a scenario that we are afraid of or that makes us really worried or something like that, it really is just the projection, and the chances of that actually translating into something physical in the world are slim to literally none with Neptune at 29 Pisces. This is things on the way out, okay? This is not things that are taking hold and going to be like defining factors going forward. Even with Saturn and Pisces right now too, as we're coming out of this very Saturnian week, this is like illusions of control, illusions of fear. Really, the truth is it's the breakdown or the dissipation or the, you know, the erosion or the fading away of the fear that may have controlled us in the past. Okay, so even though we might be finding something out that isn't what we thought it was, it is still likely to lead to something positive or help us to fix something in a way that like makes big improvements and actually prevents that from coming to pass somehow moving forward, okay? Of course, another way that this could be manifesting would be finding out what you thought was true or what you thought was real was actually a lie or an illusion the whole time, and the emotional impact that results from the breakdown of that fantasy and how it's impacting people as well. And when we're talking about Neptune squares, disappointment, disillusionment, and discouragement have a tendency of being the outcomes of things that start in that energy. And it is because there's no, like, they don't translate into anything, right? Nothing comes usually from it. And so if you start something in this energy with the expectation or the ideal or the fantasy that it's going to grow into something that it seems to be in that moment, then usually what follows that is the discouragement or the depression associated with that ideal not being realistic or not being attainable or not coming into fruition somehow. So the breakdown of the vision or what we thought was happening replaced with maybe a less desirable view of reality. Like that's just, I feel like how this energy is expressing itself. It will expose deception and bring out like the other side of the story, two sides of the story, two sides of the coin. We are talking about being in some very, very strong Gemini energy right now. Again, this concept of reflection, mirror images, things being mirrored back to us, things having to do with like sets of twos, whether they be two of the same things, the twins, or two polarly oppositional things like the contrast. Also, of course, arguments and debates and stuff like that, like very, very prominent in the energy field right now. And the theme of reflection, like I said, and you know, we may even be reflecting on the dualistic nature of the reality itself right now. And if you've noticed, the two movies, the two versions of reality that are playing simultaneously on one screen right now, and the contrast and the divergence between polarized projections of the narratives in association with what's going on in the world and the truth of our reality itself right now and our history and all of that. There is a lot on the table that is going to come into question, I will say. I do think over the course of this next year as well, and that could be coming up right now as well. As I said, we could really find ourselves doubting things. And honestly, that's a good thing, you guys, because what I haven't emphasized so far in this report is the especially once we get out of the energy on Friday and move into Saturday and specifically Sunday, this is some of the most unreliable energy that will be in all year. And I'll get there in a few minutes, but the squares between Mercury and Neptune and Venus, you're going to want to be very, 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 very careful about what you're believing, what you're buying into, what you are taking as fact or to be true as we move through the energy of the weekend, because this is some of the most deceptive energy, honestly, that astrology presents for us. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but I do want to say also, because of what's going on with Venus and Neptune this weekend, 29 degrees, mutable signs, Venus ruling relationships and financial situations, and as we move through the weekend, we're moving out of Friday now. We're going to start talking about Saturday into Sunday now. The moon will leave Virgo. Of course, that opposition from the moon was at the very last degree of the sign of Virgo. So the moon leaves Virgo and enters Libra. The moon moves quickly. And when the moon enters Libra, do you know what else is in the sign of Libra? The South Node is in the sign of Libra. The South Node represents karmic endings, and Libra is ruled by Venus, okay? Venus is in the square to Neptune. And we just had that CAZIMI. 29 degrees. Like, it feels like, it looks like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like a very black and white, that people are likely to be finding out things they didn't know were going on, or like learning information that really alters the way that they're viewing a situation, that actually leads to the ending in some type of a relationship or some type of like financial situation. Venus square Neptune, this is the, especially at the 29th degree, this is the ending, this is the transition in the context of our ideals about relationships or our fantasies about money or financial situations. This is like destroying the illusion in the context of what we thought may have been happening in these idealized or situations where we were just in a state of fantasy or hypnosis or illusion or delusion somehow. And this is being emphasized, like aside from the fact that it's 29 degrees, which is emphasizing it, and Neptune in Pisces, which is also emphasizing it, and, you know, being in Gemini as well, this is really bringing in the interconnected, like relationship, interpersonal dynamic of things. This could really have to do with business and commercial activity, business partnerships and stuff like that, as well as romantic relationships. But also, like, are you kidding me? The moon happens to be transiting Libra and literally forming a conjunction to the South Node while we have this going on. That is also karmic endings. That is also the release. Neptune, Pisces, this dissolves things, this erodes things. 29 degrees, this is the end. Okay, it's the end of the day. We are letting go. It is fading away. And it has to do with old karmic relationships or financial situations or partnerships or deals or investments or connections that are not in alignment with who we're becoming now. These that we are letting go of, that are leaving our life right now, that we're surrendering, that are falling away, those, talk about reflections, those were a reflection of who we used to be in this old paradigm of reality, which is also falling away right now as we prepare to really begin moving more into the age of Aquarius, kind of, you know, from this year going forward. And we talk about that all the time, but we're not going to talk about it right now because we've got all this other stuff to talk about. I just feel like, you know, this is turning the page, coming to the end of the road, however you want to say it, in the context of the romantic relationships or the friendships or the social situations or like the community groups or just like the images that we've upheld, the value systems that we have that have defined us somehow, that are just no longer a proper reflection of who we're growing into in this next phase of our lives, okay? So the truth about something is likely to be interfering with people's fantasies or ideals, dreams, delusions, perhaps even spiritual beliefs about things. There's a breakdown in spiritual foundations also as Saturn transits the sign of Pisces. That may have been something we've been dealing with over the course of the past week with all of the squares to Saturn. And another interesting thing about this energy, it's like, and this goes right along with being ready to like let go and coming to the end of things. Like, even though we're figuring these things out, like even though we're learning what's been going on or we're getting some, you know, new information or our eyes are being opened about something, we are still not, because of the squares to Neptune, like there's not a need or a desire or even like a willingness necessarily to actively communicate what it is that we're learning. Like, this is more so a breakdown actually in communication as a result of whatever is coming through, or like holding back, withdrawing, not being readily accessible, not being available to like talk about it or communicate about it. It's more about like disassociating from things rather than actively addressing them as a function and dynamic of just being at the point in time where we're ready to let things go. Like, people ghosting people is something I would expect to come through in the energy this weekend, just like disappearing, fading away, disconnecting, rather than verbally confronting anything. People are going to be much more passive than like assertive or aggressive in the energy of the weekend. Energy is running low. This can bring in like escapism tendencies, and that's why the best way you can really use this energy is to get some extra sleep, rest, relax, like binge watch something, read a good book, like use the fantasy land energy that is indicated here for like something that can, you know, enhance your well-being as opposed to end up causing you future problems going forward somehow. But it's sort of like I don't have the words, or there's just no point in speaking them at this point. So I'd rather just say nothing and just kind of let the situation go. So I don't know, some realization that is either leading to disillusion and disassociation or disappointment perhaps somehow, or that could be triggering our fears, right? We've got this black moon situation, fears maybe of loss or abandonment or failure, or bringing up our fantasies and our illusions and our ideals juxtaposed to the actual reality that we find ourselves living, and maybe a sense of discouragement or just like depression that's associated with that. All this Neptune energy, Neptune squares, you guys, it could feel like things are falling apart. This energy does kind of bring that sentiment, and we've got Mercury there and we've got Venus there, and then we've got the moon reflecting. So, you know, it could really like feel like that and look like that, and like we could know it in our heart. However, you know, this is a season of change, maturity, and growing up. And the conjunction is happening at 24, like I said, 24 degrees of Gemini. So we're going to read the Sabian symbol 25 Gemini, because we always round up a degree. When we read the Sabian symbols, we read the incoming wave of energy, not the outgoing wave of energy. And that Sabian symbol is a man trimming palms. So Moon in Libra, conjuncting the South Node, a man trimming palms, these squares to Neptune at 29 degrees. What loose ends, what dead ends need to be chopped off so the whole tree can be more healthy? What needs to go? What specifically relationship or financial dynamics need to be on the chopping block? Do we need to let go of? Do we need to surrender right now to enhance the overall good of the entire system, or however that happens to play out for you? Okay, so this energy is destroying the illusion and awakening us from the dream, from the matrix. And that's why I'm saying it feels like we're taking some type of red pill that is opening our eyes to something somehow, that is helping us to make a choice or decision perhaps about what we're no longer going to do or participate in, or who we're no longer going to be, or who we're no longer going to be associated with, or what we're no longer going to define ourselves by, or what is and isn't valuable to us anymore. Those are the type of questions that could be coming into context for us somehow as we move through the energy of this weekend as well. So there's all of that. We also have Venus on Friday at 27 degrees of Gemini. That Sabian symbol is a gypsy emerging from the forest. Same thing, taking the red pill, stepping out of the reality that one has always known into the truth of what's going on around. And also we have the black moon at 29 degrees of Virgo, very active in everything this weekend. And that Sabian symbol is a man gaining secret knowledge from an ancient scroll he is reading. So giving, really all those same vibes as well. So all that being said, now let's get back into how this energy can be some of the most deceptive and manipulation prone energy in essentially all of astrology. Lying, cheating, being cunning about things. When we have Mercury, especially in their home signs, Mercury in Gemini squaring Neptune in Pisces, Venus also in Gemini squaring Neptune in Pisces, and we have Jupiter right now in Gemini also at 5 degrees of Gemini. That Sabian symbol is a radical magazine cover calling for action, displays a sensational front page. Don't believe them, you guys, especially as we get into the energy of Sunday. They're probably lying. If you feel like they're lying, they're probably lying. If you think there's something shady, if you think there's something up, there probably is. Either that or they're delusional or mistaken. Lying, delusional, or confused. Including ourselves, okay? We are not exempt from the energy, so we really want to be double checking ourselves, making sure that we are not overreacting to things based on a sense of delusion or mistakenness or confusion or misunderstanding, making sure that we are not trying to manipulate or deceive anybody or any situation in order to, sway an outcome in our favor somehow. You might feel like it's working out short term, but what do I say about things with Neptune squares? You're not going to get the outcome that you thought that you might when you set out on that quest to do that deception. Okay, so probably best just to avoid anything like that. Also agree to nothing, commit to nothing, invest in nothing, expect nothing to come out of whatever is suggested or whatever, people say they're going to do in this energy. I would not expect them to follow through on it. And as I said, best use for the energy this weekend: sleep late, take naps, read books, watch a show or whatever, do research about something, get around water perhaps. Creative, imaginative activities are supported as well, but resting is really where it's at this weekend. Probably all you're going to really want to feel like doing anyways. And prime energy for relationship breakdowns, karmic endings, especially if they've been things that have been around for a long time and you've just been feeling things kind of growing apart and going in separate directions. Friendships, partnerships, agreements, deals, legal situations, things to do with siblings perhaps as well, and of course romantic relationships. 25 Gemini, right? The man trimming palms, letting go of what's not giving us life or what has been stealing our life force perhaps. And I also have to say, we've talked a lot about Neptune in this report. Neptune is currently at 29 degrees, very last degree of the sign of Pisces. That Sabian symbol is a majestic rock formation resembling a face, is idealized by a boy who takes it as his ideal of greatness. And as he grows up, begins to look like it, reflecting, you guys, on our ideals of greatness and what we must do or what we still need to do or who we must become in order to achieve that. And also, of course, probably bringing into contrast what we are aspiring to become, where we're at now, the gap between the two. And we do not want to attach to any negative feelings associated with ourselves this weekend, which is very likely because of why? Because of the black moon conjunction that is going along with all of this as well. We also have Mars at 5 degrees of Taurus right now, a widow at an open grave. So, you know, what are we letting go of, you guys? Maybe that we've loved, maybe that has defined a certain portion of our lives, but is not a proper reflection of who we're growing into and becoming now. So there it is, you guys. That is how I'm viewing what's going on energetically this weekend. Also, one last thing. It's also making me think in this moment, we're talking about Neptune and Pisces. This can have to do with like disease and illness, the medical industry, pharmaceuticals and stuff like that. And we're also talking about the square to Gemini. So there could also be information having to do with pharmaceutical stuff or disease, illness, also like oil or things happening deep under the sea that come out right now, gain some type of prominence, and again are maybe like worse than what we thought was happening. And now that we have the information, though, we have the opportunity to do things to change it. See, that's the whole thing with like this matrix thing, right? It's like we can either choose to be in blissful ignorance, whereas things actually just continue to get worse, or we can see things for what they really are, wherein then we gain the opportunity to actually change them somehow. So that's what it's looking like, you guys. That's what I have to say about the energy for the weekend. Let's get a synchronicity card now. God, Spirit, Universe. We could use probably some good advice or a nice message that came out really quickly. And our message for the weekend says, stop, don't argue. Okay? So we're going with it. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Exodus 14:14. Don't fight or argue. Rest in the assurance God is working for you on this matter. Relax, let go, and know a divine solution takes place. Harmony will return. Behave now as if it is already before you. So there you go, you guys. That is our advice and our guidance for the weekend in the context of whatever may be happening out there. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, you guys, share it with your friends if you think that they would also be interested in this type of astrology content. Leave me comments, you guys. I am so grateful for your presence here. I really value knowing what's happening with you guys out there. If you are having experiences that are a reflection of what I'm talking about in these videos, please let me know in my comment section below. That is significant information to me right now. If you want to know what's on this whiteboard, I have a link in my description box to a Facebook group where I post those, and come back with me on Monday, you guys. We are getting into a fresh week of energy. We will have shifting vibes happening on Monday. Mercury and Venus are going to be in a conjunction together, moving into the sign of Cancer. So where our mind is geared and oriented, and also what we want and desire, is going to be shifting slightly as we move through the next several weeks. So we're going to talk about that on Monday. I'll be here to do it. You don't want to miss it. Have a beautiful weekend, you guys, and until next time, bye.